Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Emily Telling. I am the sales director here in Texas for Semperis, and we appreciate your time this morning. Looking forward to a pretty quick session today. We're going to be talking about Semperis, giving you a brief introduction about our company, what we do, and more specifically, a brand new Active Directory security assessment tool that we have launched to the public at zero cost. So before we get started, I'd like to also introduce our partner, Mobius, who is our co-host this morning. Mobius is a San Antonio-based technology company, one of our top business partners here in the South Central United States, and they focus on consulting, they focus on technology, they focus on innovation, and again, one of our top business partners bringing the Semperis platform to the market. We've had a lot of great success with them in Texas and look forward to a continued relationship there. So I'm going to get started with just a couple of quick slides to start this discussion, just to frame our demo. In case you haven't heard of us, Semperis is a platform for Active Directory recovery and cyber resilience. We are one of the fastest growing companies in America, and hopefully you'll see why here when we start the presentation. So who are we? Our company name is Latin for always ready. And what we do is we help companies to mitigate risks and improve security around Active Directory. We do two things and we do them very, very well. We identify risks in the environment, we help customers recover from any type of outage, and we give you insight into security vulnerabilities that are coming out against Active Directory in nearly real time. As you'll see on the right-hand side of this slide here, we're receiving a ton of great awards right now because we really are helping customers to fill a very specific niche in their business plans and their business continuity plans. Active Directory is one of the most critical applications in any organization, and we want to make sure that the environment is hardened and recoverable. So what we've done is we actually have two products that we're not going to talk about today, but I'm happy to have a follow-up schedule with you if you're interested. We have one product around full comprehensive security for Active Directory and another one for forest recovery. Today, we are going to talk about Purple Knight. This is a security assessment tool, like I mentioned, that we've launched out to the public at zero cost. The reason we have done this is because we want to help companies and organizations to understand the risks against their identity stores and give them a very prescriptive way to fix those issues. So this is built and managed by an elite group of Microsoft identity experts. It's been tested in customers of all sizes. The feedback has been incredibly positive. Here's a quick screenshot of what we're going to demo today. So with Purple Knight, it only requires read-only access. It's very easy to run in any organization, does not require any sort of administrative rights or anything like that. And then we're going to scan the environment, typically takes a couple of minutes, and then we're going to give you a full report based on MITRE ATT&CK framework and correlation from security indicators. So my colleague Val is going to jump in and show you how we run these tools, or how we run this tool, and then how we generate the report. You'll see how simple it is to run and really how high value that we're bringing to the organizations. So Val, we're going to go ahead and ship over to you, and then we'll also talk about how you can get your own copy of Purple Knight towards the end of the session here.
Thank you, Emily. So again, my name is Val Vasquez, and I'll be walking everyone through both a demonstration and effectively an instructional video on how to get Purple Knight up and running the very first time that it comes into your possession. So first off, the Purple Knight file is a downloadable zip, which is approximately 100 megs in size. And the very first thing that you're going to need to do to be successful with Purple Knight is you'll actually have to take that zip file, right-click on it, hit Properties, and then hit the Unblock button down here at the bottom of the property sheet, and finally, OK. And what that's going to do is it's going to remove certain security precautions from the Windows operating system, allowing us to actually run. You'll know that you have failed to do this if when you execute the program, immediately things kind of start getting a little wonky. But once you've unblocked the file, you would go ahead and unzip that, of course. Once you have that unzipped, You'll note that inside of the directory, we do not have a setup or an installer, but rather it's mostly this purplenight.exe file. And the goal behind that, this is of course by design, is we wanted Purple Night to be a very lightweight, easy to manage process for doing quick inspections of your Active Directory infrastructure and delivering real value very quickly. And so to that end, we didn't want to have a complex installer that would leave files all over the place. With Purple Night, once you're done with it, you can effectively delete this directory and it will all be removed from your system. Now, before you start clicking on the Purple Night executable itself to run the files, I'd like to draw your attention to the scripts directory. Purple Night, in a nutshell, is basically an engine with a GUI that allows us to run various PowerShell scripts looking for different indicators of exposure and indicators of compromise within your enterprise as it relates to Active Directory. Though Purple Night is not an open source application, we did feel that it was imperative for us to be transparent in terms of what it is that we were showing and what we were doing within your Active Directory. So you can actually grab any of these various scripts, you can open them up and see what exactly it is that we're looking for and the status of everything that we're doing. At the bottom of each script, you will also find the digital signature block. And what this does is that it authoritatively locks the exact version of the script to the Purple Night executable, meaning that if you or a threat actor party were to make any modifications to the scripts that are contained therein, the Purple Night executable would not run them. And what we're really trying to do here is to raise your level of confidence in that if you run Purple Night and you run one of these scripts, it's not going to do something that someone else has introduced into the process. It's all backed by Semperis and our award-winning team here. So now that we've gotten this far, let's talk a tiny bit about the permissions that are required in order to get Purple Night to run. As Emily mentioned during her portion of the presentation, all you need is read-only access to Active Directory. You don't need domain admin privileges. And in fact, we suggest that you don't use domain admin privileges for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want this report to be indicative of what an attacker or cyber criminal would see upon first making landfall within your environment. They're not going to hit your environment after phishing a domain admin, by way of example. They're going to start by phishing Bob in accounting. And we want this report to show you what that attacker would see when they first come on board. Another reason that, frankly, we'd like people to run this in a regular domain user is because it limits the threat level and the exposure of your environment to your environment when you're running any unknown application, so to speak. So right now, I'm going to be running Purple Night as a domain user. And you'll note here in this Who Am I, that I do not have any domain admin or elevated privileges. Quite honestly, the most critical privilege that I have here that is relevant to us is the authenticated user's privilege. That I do need because that is what will enable me to read 99.9% of Active Directory. And therein lay the crux of the problem, that within AD, as long as you're an authenticated user, you have access to read almost everything. And from that point, the attacker and cyber criminal can map things out and determine where your weaknesses are, as you're about to see. You may be pretty shocked as far as the level of information that we can pull out with only authenticated users. The other item that I will reference is that as these scripts that are running in the background are PowerShell based, we do need to have the ability to execute PowerShell on the system. So when you're looking to run this, make sure that your execution policy is set to at least remote signed, and that will permit us to run the scripts and generate the report. Again, if you fail to do this, it'll be very apparent when you go to run the product, because what will happen is it's going to start iterating through the various tests, and you're just going to get 75 errors very quickly, one after the other. And it's because we don't have the privilege to run the script. Last but not least, before we actually run the Purple Knight, all you need is a domain joined workstation. It does need to be joined to the domain. And as far as the operating system is concerned, it can basically be any Microsoft supported version of Windows. That could be in Windows 10, that could be 2016, 2019, etc. Okay, with all of that out of the way, we're going to run Purple Knight. And this first splash screen takes a little bit of time to run through, typically 30 to 40 seconds. And what the product is actually doing now is it's loading all of the scripts into local memory. And more critically, it's validating those digital signatures. So it's running the checksum tests to verify that nothing has been tampered with before it brings us to the opportunity, give us the opportunity to actually run things. On this screen, we're being prompted to accept the license agreement. So we'll just hit next. And Purple Knight should be able to automatically detect what the name of the environment is, the forest, which it is connecting to. In my case, it was able to successfully auto-discover that adfr.lab is the name of the forest. If for whatever reason that doesn't work out, typically that's also going to be because of a DNS problem. You can manually type in the forest name. So you just click over here, enter forest name manually, and then click the black select button. Once you've performed that function, Purple Knight will go out and iterate through finding the various child domains or various domains within the forest. In my case, we can see that I've got an adfr.lab root, and I've got a child.adfr.lab child domain within this environment. As that indeed does check out, I'm going to hit next. And for the record, we do recommend that when you run this, you run it against all available domains in the forest to get a full accounting of your posture. So we'll hit next. So now we're getting to the screen where the product is describing which are the tests that we're going to be running. So these are all broken up into various categories and mapped against the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So for example, I can open up this AD infrastructure security and click on this first example here, and we'll see exactly what this test is. So evidence of Mimikatz DC shadow. It's critical, it's a severity level, which in this case happens to be critical. And then we say that this maps to defense evasion within MITRE. And down here at the bottom, we give you a description not only of what this attack actually is, but the likelihood of compromise. So how often is this seen in the wild? And in this particular case, this is a commonly used attack vector. Be aware that you don't need to write all of this stuff down that's being presented here or screenshot it or whatever. It will be re-delivered within the final report. One thing that I would like to note is that by default, we deselect one of the tests, and that's this zero logon vulnerability. The simple reason for us doing this is that unlike the majority of the other tests, zero logon can take several hours to execute within a typical production environment. We'd like people to get responses quickly. So what we usually say is run this report with that deselected. And once you've been able to go through and consume it and digest it, et cetera, you probably should circle back around and execute that zero logon vulnerability. It just takes a long time relative to the other tests, which is why we don't select it by default. Once you've gone through and reviewed all of the various tests that we're going to be running inside of the different categories, you simply hit run test. And then the product is going to iterate through all of the different areas. And again, this is where you would actually see the problems if you had failed to change the execution policy. So here I can open up any of these categories. It's going very quickly through the tests, and we're about 20 seconds in, and we're almost done already.
Val, I always like to tell customers not to be too discouraged on the first time they run Purple Knight in their environment. Do you mind touching on that as well? Because sometimes we see some pretty low scores there on the first pass.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're in a production environment, which has been around for any length of time, it's probably going to have some challenges and some difficulties. Unlike my own environment here, which you see got a grade of an A, well, this is a lab. So there's nothing horribly interesting going on here. There have been no changes to be made that have been made to the security posture of the environment that are of any note. But when you're working in a real environment, you're not just there to run Active Directory. You're there to service users, you're there to service applications. More often than not, that means that you've made changes to the security of Active Directory. You've set up trusts, you have configured SID history, you have created unconstrained delegation in order to support some app that was deployed 15 years ago. And all of these things add up. When these conditions and telltale signs are found, that's going to reduce your score. So here, within the context of my own grade, again, it's a very good grade, but this is not typical at all. I've helped clients run over 300 of these reports in over 300 different environments. And the typical grade that we end up seeing is a D as in David. What we're going to do is actually shift over to a saved PDF file, which is going to be more interesting to talk through. So this is what the report output looks like. Here we have the aforementioned typical grade, which is a D. I can scroll down and see information about how this report was generated. Though this particular report was executed under the administrator privilege, again, we do not recommend that you use domain admin to create this. As you scroll down, we're given the breakup of where the various tests ended. So we ran 74 tests in total. 35 had a problem, i.e. were found to be in a failed state. 39 passed. Under the critical IOEs, this is where you're being given information about those specific indicators and tests that were run that would allow an attacker to go from having phished a low-level user to actually gaining domain admin level privileges. So you're going to really want to focus in on these for sure. For any of these items that are shown here, you're going to click the read more in order to get a detailed breakdown of what this is. This reversible passwords found in GPOs is the most commonly detected one based upon my experience inside of production environments. And it's also one of the most dangerous ones, if I can be frank, because if an attacker were to find that you have reversible passwords within your GPOs, this now becomes an environment that they are going to invest time and effort in, because there's a very high likelihood that inside of that GPO, there will be improperly stored domain admin credentials. Within here, the description and the likelihood of compromise, you'll see more explanation around what that is. And we also tell you the specific objects that had the problem. So here it's saying that I've got a GPO named C password, which is linked to two different areas. And if you were to decrypt that GPO, you would probably find elevated privileges. Under remediation steps, we would go through and here's a tip as far as what you should do. This utility, Purple Knight, does not remediate these problems. There is no click and fix thing. For that, you're going to want to engage someone like Moebius, most likely, in order to actually go through and make sense of what needs to be done within your environment. Returning to the top of the report, you would continue to make your way through all of those critical level indicators of exposure. And then we give you information around the warning level and informational level IOEs and IOCs. And just as before, for each of these, you would click read more. That would take you to the detailed information and breakout of which objects were found to be in this error condition. And then we have the grade breakout here overall within the various categories. What I'll close on is to let you guys know that Purple Knight really treats the security of your environment as a important thing. And to that end, Purple Knight has no phone home capabilities. So we're not going to know if you ran it. We don't know how many times you run it. We don't know the grade that you received. We don't know which particular test had a problem, et cetera, et cetera. Owing to the sensitive nature of the information that may be contained within this report, we felt that it was really critical for us not to upload these results sort of thing into a web service and then have you need to worry about our security and whether or not this information could be exfiltrated from Semperis. When you run Purple Knight and generate these reports, the contents are exclusively written to the machine where you have run Purple Knight on, and again, are not sent or disseminated to ourselves or Moebius in any way. The only way that we know about the results is if you choose to engage us in a conversation regarding what was found. So with that, Emily, I think I will close and turn the time back over to you.
Great. Thanks, Val. That was a great demo of the Purple Knight capabilities. Now, as a call to action, we'll be reaching back out to everybody just to follow up and see if you're interested in getting the download for this tool. And if you do want to be proactive on that, we can also have you reach out to your Moebius account manager who sent you the invitation for this event, or whoever sent you the invitation from my team as well. If you have any questions at all, feel free to go on to www.semperis.com, and a contact me button is there as well. So we look forward to being in contact with you shortly. Thanks for everybody's time this morning. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.